The Enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. Around 578 BC, Siddhartha Gautama, who would later be known as the Buddha, attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. This moment of awakening, often described as a sudden and profound realization, marked the beginning of a spiritual journey that has influenced countless lives over nearly 3 millennia. But what exactly did the Buddha realize? What was the essence of his enlightenment? And how did it shape his teachings? The era of the Buddha. The Buddha lived in a time around 563 BCE, which corresponds to the spring and autumn period in China, a time not far removed from the era of Laozi. It was a period of intellectual flourishing across the world, where thinkers began to explore the fundamental nature of reality and existence. In China, this was the age of the 100 schools of thought, while in the West, philosophers like Socrates were beginning to emerge. This period can be seen as an intellectual explosion, comparable to the birth of quantum mechanics and relativity in modern science. Before this, humanity had only just started to address basic survival needs, and questions about the deeper nature of the universe were largely unexplored. The question of the world's origin. The Buddha took a unique stance on the origin of the world, refusing to define a clear starting point. He emphasized that the world is without a true beginning or end, governed by a concept he called dependent origination or cause and condition. According to this view, everything arises due to a complex interplay of causes and conditions. For instance, a seed cause will only grow into a plant under the right conditions, such as proper soil and weather. Because these causes and conditions are constantly changing, the origin of the world is indefinable and ever-changing. This idea parallels the ancient Chinese concept of yin and yang and resembles modern scientific theories about the continuous evolution of the universe. The structure of the universe. In the Buddha's view, the universe is vast and multifaceted, with no single defining structure. He spoke of a central mountain, Mount Sumeru, surrounded by vast oceans and lands, including the 4 continents, with our world, known as Jambudvipa, being just one part of a much larger cosmos. The universe, as described by the Buddha, is not a singular entity but rather a collection of innumerable worlds and realms, each governed by its own laws of cause and effect. This cosmology is extraordinarily complex, involving countless layers and levels, from small to vast, culminating in what he described as great thousand-world systems, each composed of smaller world systems. Time and its mysteries. The Buddha's concept of time was equally intricate. He described time in terms of tiny units, with the smallest being a moment, equivalent to about 0.018 seconds. This reflects the idea that time is a continuous flow of fleeting moments, much like frames in a movie, where each frame is distinct yet part of a continuous whole. The Buddha also introduced the idea that time moves differently in various realms of existence. For instance, the passage of time in heavenly realms or hellish realms is far different from the human experience of time, a concept that echoes modern ideas of time relativity. The law of cause and effect. Central to the Buddha's teachings is the law of cause and effect, also known as karma. In his view, all actions, whether physical, verbal, or mental, have consequences that manifest in the present or future. This law of cause and effect operates across all realms of existence and is the driving force behind the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth samsara. The Buddha rejected the notion of a supreme deity controlling the universe, arguing instead that everything arises and falls according to natural laws and conditions. Even beings considered gods in other traditions are subject to these laws, and they too experience birth, aging, and death. The classification of life. The Buddha categorized life into 6 realms of existence: gods, humans, asuras, demigods, animals, hungry ghosts, and hell beings. These realms represent different states of existence that one can be reborn into, depending on one's karma. The cycle of birth and rebirth, known as samsara, is driven by ignorance and desire, and the only way to escape this cycle is through enlightenment. The Buddha also spoke of 4 types of birth: womb-born, egg-born, moisture-born, and spontaneously born. While the first 3 types are familiar to us, spontaneous birth refers to beings who arise without the need for a physical parent, such as certain celestial beings or spirits. The Buddha's understanding of life forms and their evolution was surprisingly advanced, even suggesting that beings could devolve into lower forms of life or evolve into higher ones based on their actions and karma. The unity of material and spiritual. the Buddha proposed a unique view of reality that transcends the typical dualities of material and spiritual, mind and body. He argued that the true nature of existence is beyond these distinctions and that all phenomena are interdependent and interconnected. This view is encapsulated in the teaching that form is emptiness, and emptiness is form, suggesting that what we perceive as solid and real is ultimately empty of any inherent, unchanging substance. This emptiness is not nihilism but a recognition of the fluid, ever-changing nature of reality. The Buddha also introduced the concept of mind and matter, where the mind and the physical body are seen as two sides of the same coin, both necessary for the existence of sentient beings. He emphasized that neither mind nor matter exists independently. They are mutually dependent, each giving rise to the other in a dynamic process that underlies all existence. Transcending suffering. At the heart of the Buddha's teachings is the understanding of suffering dukkha and the path to its cessation. He taught that life is inherently unsatisfactory due to the impermanent and transient nature of all things. This suffering is not limited to physical pain but includes psychological and existential dissatisfaction, the sense of unfulfillment that pervades our lives. The Buddha identified the root causes of suffering as ignorance, attachment, and aversion. These mental afflictions keep beings trapped in the cycle of samsara. The way out of this cycle is through the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, which includes right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. By following this path, one can gradually purify the mind, overcome the causes of suffering, and ultimately achieve nirvana, a state of liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Nirvana. The ultimate goal. Nirvana, in the Buddhist teaching, is not a place but a state of being, a complete cessation of suffering and the extinction of all desires and attachments. It represents the ultimate freedom from the cycle of samsara and the realization of the true nature of reality. In nirvana, one experiences unconditioned peace and bliss, free from the disturbances of the mind and the world. The Buddha described nirvana as beyond all concepts and dualities, something that cannot be fully comprehended by the unenlightened mind. It is a state where the flame of craving and ignorance has been extinguished, leading to complete liberation. The legacy of the Buddha's enlightenment. The Buddha's teachings have had a profound impact on the world, influencing not only religious and spiritual traditions but also philosophy, psychology, and ethics. His insights into the nature of reality, the mind, and the causes of suffering continue to resonate with people across cultures and time periods. While the world has changed dramatically since the Buddha's time, the fundamental truths he discovered under the Bodhi tree remain relevant. His teachings encourage us to look beyond the superficial appearances of the world and to explore the deeper truths that underlie our existence. In doing so, we can find a path to true peace and happiness, just as the Buddha did more than 2,500 years ago. Conclusion. The Buddha's enlightenment under the Bodhi tree represents a moment of profound insight into the nature of reality and the human condition. His teachings on cause and effect, the nature of time, the structure of the universe, and the unity of material and spiritual realities offer a comprehensive framework for understanding the world and our place in it. Through his teachings, the Buddha provided a path for individuals to transcend suffering and achieve true liberation, a message that continues to inspire and guide people around the world today.